Hey there neighbors, welcome to Wild Homestead Living. I'm Julie and today I'm with my friend Connie and I'm very excited to share her tomatoes with you. So we're gonna do a little walkthrough of her process with tomatoes and why I buy from her instead of grow my own. And then once we get back to our homestead, I'll show you how to plant them in containers. It's an exciting day for us. We are on a field trip. We are headed to pick up our tomato plants for this year. And we are not super great at growing tomatoes, but that's okay because one of my coworkers it's her specialty. And her tomatoes grow the biggest tomatoes, the biggest, healthiest plants I've ever seen. So we're gonna connect with her and hopefully she'll tell us a little bit more about how she got started with them.
Come on. A little bit crazy, but see, they're nice and they're not falling over.
Oh yeah, your stems are so thick and strong.
Yeah, and then I have, when it's hotter, I have the bigger fan going. But here, you're just keeping the movement so they're sturdy. Usually when you're doing this, your tomatoes, all the seeds don't come up.
Mm-hmm.
Mine do. And it's like, oh, what am I going to do with them all? So, for a while, my mom and my sister-in-law, and then I started putting them out by the road and the neighbors. And, I couldn't find the varieties that I wanted. So when I did find them, you get a bunch of seeds and just start growing them. And people would say, do you have this tomato? I want this tomato. And then somebody says, oh, you have to grow this one. This one's really good. So just try it and go for it.
It's time to plant our tomatoes. We actually have had them home for a couple of weeks, but the nights were too cold to plant out, and so we've been keeping them in our greenhouse. Ideally, you want the temperatures to be in the mid 40s or higher at night when you plant your tomatoes. Anything below 40 is probably too cold, and anything in that 40 to 45 is marginal. But there's some things you can do to protect your plants if you're going to be in that zone. And I'll go over those next when we go over what you need to plant your tomatoes. There's really only 5 things that you need in addition to your tomato plant to get started with tomatoes. And I've got them here and I'm going to go over them with you now. And if you're just getting started with tomatoes, I would encourage you to start with this, see if you like it, and then I'm going to show you optional things that we're adding that you might like to add in the future, but you certainly don't need to do that. So the first thing is obviously a container. This is a container that I got at Target probably 10 years ago that was originally a laundry basket. I just drilled some holes in the bottom for drainage. And then inside we've got our potting soil, and this is our own special mix, which we've covered in a separate blog post and video if you're interested in that. Some slow release fertilizer. This one is Down to Earth that we got at our local hardware store. Water, and then a tomato cage or tomato support. There are lots of different styles and structures. This is the most common one that you can usually buy for a couple of bucks. The optional items that we're going to use are designed to enhance the tomatoes, to give them a little extra boost, especially if they're in a container or you're in our climate, which is not really ideal for growing tomatoes. And the first thing is this hot cap. Now, a hot cap is great for nighttime for protecting your tomato if the temperatures get a little too cold, and it has these air holes that you can turn on and off. Before I knew about hot caps, or I could even really afford them, I just used plastic, like 1-gallon Ziploc bags, and I would put them on toothpicks or skewers over my tomatoes. That works great too. If you're in a climate that's a little warmer, you probably don't even need to consider this. The fish and kelp emulsion is something that we soak our tomatoes in when we start, and then we give them this every couple of weeks. Certainly not a requirement because that slow release fertilizer you use is going to enhance them. But we're going for maximum nutrition, maximum micronutrients in our tomatoes, so we add this as an extra boost. Mycorrhizal fungus is a way to enhance the roots and help them to take up more nutrients from the soil. This, though, is about 20 bucks. You just sprinkle a little bit in so it lasts a while, and it's great if you have a lot of plants, but not necessary for sure. And this is organic gypsum, which adds some calcium. And our soil mix can use a little extra calcium, and tomatoes especially need a little extra calcium. So this just helps us prevent any potential disease or nutrient deficiencies. Maybe the strangest item is this. This is a water spike. And especially for containers where it can be easy for them to dry out, it's very helpful. It's unglazed terracotta, and you just put it in the ground, and then you take a bottle, like this wine bottle, full, and put it inside. And the water slowly comes down and releases out of the terracotta into your pot. So if you use these, you'll still need to probably water them daily or every couple of days with a watering can or a hose, but this is just a little bit of extra insurance. And last but not least is something new we're trying this year, which is companion planting. So this is a basil, and basil is a really great friend to tomatoes, and I've heard carrots are as well, but we're just going to plant a few extra around the bottom where they aren't going to compete with each other and enhance each other a little bit. Get the maximum food we can out of a limited space. There are lots of different types of cages and supports that you can use for tomatoes. And I showed you the basic cage, which you can get at most hardware stores. If you've got a really big operation, you can use wood frames and string. This year, we're going to be trying 2 types of heavy-duty wire cage, and they are pretty solid. One of them is a square, so you can just kind of let the plants loose and grow in them. The other one is a little bit more narrow. We are finally ready to put our tomatoes in their pots. Now here's a super cool secret about planting tomatoes. Most plants you want to plant right at the same level that they come to you or that you grow them in their pot or in their soil block in our case. But with tomatoes, you can take off the branches up to maybe about the top 1 or 2 and plant them that deep, and the stem will grow more roots. The reason that this is an advantage is that your plant having a stronger root base will be able to pull in more nutrients, which will make your plant healthier, make it more resistant to disease and pests, make your food more nutritious and productive. So I've put all my amendments in one jar so I can pour them as we go. And then I've got my fish and kelp emulsion in a bowl, and I'm just going to put my plant in that right now while I do the other steps and set it aside. And then I've added something I forgot to mention, which is this extra bucket. Because I'm going to be planting this plant so deep and I'm going to need to move so much soil, there's not quite enough space. So I'm going to put a lot of it in here while I build up this pot. Okay, so now I've got plenty of space in here to move things around. I'm going to sprinkle about half of this jar in. And if you're not sure about how much fertilizer to use or any of the other ingredients, it'll usually say on the back of your packaging. So I'm going to mix that up really well, and then I'm going to dig a deep hole for my tomato plant. And then I'm going to get ready to do the leaf removal. Now, even though I've done this many times and I know that it works really well, it's always a little stressful to know how many leaves to remove. So I'm just gonna kind of gently put it in place and see about where my soil is gonna be. So I think I'm safe taking off right up to here. So you can just see right there. I'm gonna just pop it off. Just pop it off. Now you can also do this with scissors if you prefer and you have some good clean shears for gardening. So there we go. We're all set. And I'm gonna just pack in the soil that I've already got in here and mixed really well. Then I'm gonna take what's left in this bowl and pour it in. Now I'm gonna add about half of this bucket of soil into the container where the tomato is growing. And then I'm gonna add the rest of my soil amendments all around. And I'll work these in like so. And then because the soil is almost too loose, I'm gonna give it a nice firm pat. Next up, we're gonna put our companion plants, which are gonna be the basil seeds. And I'm just gonna poke some little holes all around. And I'm gonna sprinkle 1 or 2 seeds into each of those holes and cover them up, pat them down. For this one, we're using the square cage, so it's going to be a bit of a trick to get it around the sides, but I believe that we can do it. We just have to watch out for these handles. There we go. And the last item is going to be our water spike. Well, there you have it. Our plant is all tucked in and ready for the season, and we have set it up for success to give us lots of delicious and nutritious tomatoes. I would love it if you scroll down wherever you're watching and leave us a comment or question. We read and follow up on every one, and you're also welcome to head on over to wildhomesteadliving.com, where you can sign up for our email newsletter list, and we send exclusive content to our community. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. I was trying to hurry to avoid the camera battery dying on me, and this is what happened. So this is a lesson for me in going slow and being patient. Wonderful skills to learn in gardening, not my strengths.